Welcome to today's meeting. Let's begin with a thought experiment. We are into chapter 4, franchises and independent contracting in the gig and sharing economy. So the thought experiment that I mentioned about is about you imagining that I hand you 86,400 this morning. So I'm giving you 86,400 this morning. The rule is you can't save any of it. You have to spend it all before midnight. If you don't do that, whatever is left just disappears. Okay, let's just imagine such a scenario that I give you 86,400 and you cannot save it. You have to spend it all before midnight, or whatever is left just disappears. So what would you do? Pay off loans, buy a car, book a dream trip? Pretty soon you'd realize that it's actually hard to spend it all wisely in one day. You'd think, you give me this money, I'll spend it in a jiffy, but that's not how it works. You would realize it's not that easy. Why? Here's the connection. Why you think, every day, each of us already gets 86,400 seconds. And each second is let's say, like a dollar. Think about it. Once a second is gone, just this second, it's gone, it's gone. How carefully do we use our time? Entrepreneurs face a similar challenge when deciding where to invest their limited time and energy. More importantly, time and energy. Do they build a franchise? Do they go solo as independent contractors? Or do they try their luck in the gig or sharing economy? So many options. So this chapter is all about these options. Okay. So that's what it is about. Okay. So let's see what this chapter presents for us. Okay. Through this chapter, we will be learning about franchise, about the key terms related to franchising, the pros and cons of franchising, process of evaluating a franchise opportunity, and of course, meanings of terms like independent contractor, gig economy, sharing economy, and their importance to entrepreneurs. So this is what we will be learning because, like I just explained in that example, with the limited time and energy an entrepreneur has, they have so many opportunities available to them, so many alternatives. such as franchising, independent contracting, gig economy, sharing economy, and they have 86,400 seconds in a day. So how do they decide where to spend that time and energy, right? So first question is, what is a franchise? Okay. So I want you to think about your favorite fast food chain. It could be a fast food chain, could be like McDonald's. Okay. Ever notice how the McDonald's in your neighborhood feels almost identical to the one across the town or even across the world? That's not an accident. That's because of franchising. So, what's a franchise? A franchise is a method of distributing products or services in which a company, meaning the franchisor, licenses its brand and business model to another person, that is the franchisee. So, the franchisee, what do? They invest their money to run that location, but they agree to follow the franchisor's rule. So for example, in the case of McDonald's, the main McDonald's company is the franchisor. And suppose you want to open a franchise tomorrow of McDonald's in your neighborhood, then what you need to do is buy the license, buy the license from the main McDonald company, okay, for the McDonald's brand, for its business model, okay, and so that you can run it in your neighborhood, but you have to follow the rules of the franchisor, which is McDonald's in this case. So Starbucks is a great example. Whether you're in New Jersey, London, or Mumbai, the caramel macchiato, if you've tried that, tastes the same. The cappuccino tastes the same. So that's consistency, and consistency is what builds customer trust. So that is key in franchise. There should not be any deviation, you know, otherwise the franchise loses its brand. So what are the key terms in franchising? So let's just clear up some jargon. Let's go back to the previous, um, you know, slide, and let's just clear up all these words once again. Franchisor is the parent company. Like, think of Dunkin' Donuts, think of Subway. These are the franchisors. Who are the franchisees? They're the persons who buy the right to run a store. Okay. And there is something called the franchise contract. And what's this contract? It spells out the obligations on both sides. And before signing, franchisor must give you a franchise disclosure document or FDD. So that's basically like a prenup of franchising. Think of it like a prenup of franchising. So they will show you all the disclosure. It tells you all costs, legal history, and expectations. And if it's okay with both of you, both the franchisor and the franchisee, then they will enter into a contract. Okay. So now there are two types of franchising. Okay. So what are those two types? If you see, the two types of franchising are um, product and trade name franchising and business model, business format franchising. Okay. Now, what is a product or trade name franchising? It's like a Toyota dealership where you're selling a company's recognized product. Okay. So you could take Toyota's dealership and you're selling their products. That's it. Okay. And it's a recognized product, recognized brand name. That is product or trade name franchising. Okay. Now, what is a business format franchising? It's like Subway, McDonald's, Planet Fitness, all these, Dunkin' Donuts, where you're buying the whole system. You're whole system means what? You're buying the recipe, you're buying the branding, you're buying the supply chain, even the color of the napkins. Okay. So that is what business format franchising means. Now, uh, there are more advanced terms, okay, like master licensee. So what's a master licensee? A master licensee is somebody who takes, um, the ownership of recruiting all franchisees in a territory. So let's suppose I say I want to become a master franchisee for New Jersey for Subway. That means I take the ownership of appointing other franchisees in New Jersey for Subway, and I take that right from um, the main Subway. So that is the master franchisee. So some people practice multiple unit ownership and own 5 or 10 subways at once. So that also happens. Instead of master franchisee, you might think, okay, I don't want to take the whole of New Jersey. So let me just buy 7, 8 units. So I have a friend who has multiple ownerships and he owns 8 sports clips franchise units, Sometimes you may become an area developer. So for example, you may say, okay, I don't want to take the whole New York City franchise. So maybe I'll just take, the South Bronx. So you take that particular area and you get the rights to open several outlets in that particular area. And then there is piggybacking. What's piggybacking? Piggybacking is like Starbucks inside Target. If you go into Target, you'll find the Starbucks. And you'll also find a CVS. You'll see that. So that's called, piggybacking. And then you also have co-branding. For example, if you go to some places, you'll have Pizza Hut and Taco Bell side by side. So they're sharing the space. You would find that a lot if you go to a restaurant. Recently in my neighborhood, I saw some two restaurants. One was healthy eating, and the other one was Indian tikka shop. They both are, sharing the space, but two different screens, two different outlets. But there is um, no wall in between. You can go to these two shops, but so that is co-branding, right? So franchising is more flexible than you might think. You can see so many of these arrangements. So it's very, very flexible. It's not just burgers and fries anymore. You will see franchising in tutoring, in pet care, in healthcare, even fitness apps. Okay. There's so many of them. So take a second and pause and take a second and think of a franchise you've recently used. That's not a restaurant. So can you think of any such restaurant? Any such franchise? So then that will give you an idea of how franchise model is prevalent in many industries, not just the food industry. Okay, so now let us look at the impact of franchising. Okay, how important this is and why we are looking at it today. So it's not small potatoes. Let me tell you, franchising is not small potatoes. That's why we have a dedicated chapter on this. So in 2021, franchising supported about 7.5 million jobs and generated $670 billion in revenue. So that's around 3% of the entire US economy. Think about that. 7.5 million jobs. Okay. And 670 billion in revenue. Okay. So that's a lot, right? So it doesn't stop with the franchisees themselves. Okay, so the impact is, this we're talking about 7.5 million jobs and 670 billion, 3% of the entire US economy. That's just the franchising. But this impact doesn't stop there. Think of the suppliers, think of the banks, marketing agencies, construction crews, all of these are connected to the franchisees, and they are also making money out of it. So all of these also benefit from the franchise ecosystem. So it's a snowballing effect. It's huge. The impact is huge. Okay. Now, let's look at the um, pros and cons of franchising now. Okay. Let's look at the pros and cons. Okay. Now, why would somebody choose franchising? So let's first talk about the pros, okay, the pluses. You're buying a proven business model, definitely. You don't have to start from the scratch and reinvent the wheel. So somebody's already done the whole headache for you. You get a known brand that already attracts customers, training and support from the franchisor, and then bulk purchasing discounts, and sometimes even financing help. So you get all of this. Okay. But so you really, like a lot of things are taken care of, like brand, customers, brand, because the brand, a lot of customers are going to come to you. And you can also, how to train your employees. They will teach you how to train. There's a manual, and they'll also train you for that. And you also, the suppliers, they have already identified the suppliers. So you're going to get the bulk discount, purchasing discount, and the bankers are also happy to extend finance facilities because you're part of a big brand. These are all plus 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 plus. But what are the minuses, the cons? First is the upfront cost can be very high. You'll pay, um, you know they might ask you to invest like 100,000, sometimes 50,000, I don't know. The upfront cost can be quite a lot. Okay. In McDonald's, they may even ask, like, I don't know, 500,000 or so upfront cost. Then no, it doesn't stop there. For every dollar that you earn, you have to pay 10% of your sales or 20% of whatever is the agreed amount. That's called the royalty. So you will pay royalty, okay, usually 5 to 10% of your sales, and contribute to advertising funds. Okay, so not only are you paying royalties, you're also supposed to pay for the advertising. Okay, and there's also churning where franchisors push out struggling franchisees just to resell the location. So suppose there is a particular location where it's not doing well. So what they'll do is the franchisor will say, okay, this unit is not doing well, so let me resell it to somebody else. And so that kind of is a little bit of a tricky situation because are you really buying a good location? Because you don't know that they're churning. And that's a bit of a tricky situation. And there's also encroachment. What that means is where the company places another outlet right near yours. So it's cannibalizing, right? They're going to eat away your, um, you know, if they're going to set up another subway right next to you, that is going to eat away your sales, right? So, and the biggest downside, what's the biggest downside? You're not fully your own boss. Your creativity is limited. You have to follow the system. Okay, think of it like renting a furnished apartment. Everything is ready for you. It's furnished, fully furnished, everything is ready for you. But you really can't knock down walls or paint the place neon green. So think of it. So pause for a moment and think, which side of franchising appeals to you more? The support and the structure, or the limitations and the fees? So if you think carefully, that basically can give you the answer about whether you prefer franchising or prefer to go on your own. Because it comes, even if you're going on your own without franchising, there are pros and there are cons. So pause for a minute and think about it. Okay, so churning and encroaching and the costs, all of these are cons. Okay, so now how are we going to evaluate um, a franchise opportunity? Okay, so when we first one of the things before you evaluate, you need to think about the cost. Okay, let me give you a little more details about the cost. Like I said, it may go up to several hundred or many thousands of dollars. Like McDonald's, I think, is $500,000 initial franchise fee, like I said. Not only that, you have to pay for the building, you have to pay for the rents, you have to pay for the inventory, equipment cost, insurance premium, legal fees, and so many other startup expenses. And I also said you have to pay like 5 to 10% of your revenue. That's called the royalty. And you have to pitch in for the advertising cost. So, just keep these costs also. So now, keeping all this, now you have to think about how do I evaluate the franchising opportunities? Because no two franchises are the same. Remember that. Not every franchise is attractive. Okay. So before signing anything, ask, does this franchisor have a strong reputation? Okay. Do their products have real demand? Okay. Do they provide training and marketing support? What do other franchisees say about this particular franchise? Okay. So think of all this. Do they have a real demand? Do they have a strong reputation? Do they provide training and marketing? What do the other franchisees say? Okay. Now, beyond the company's own pitch, right? Meaning, let's say you're trying to buy great clips or sports clips hair salon franchise. So great clips of folk sports clip may give you a pitch about how good it is to own a salon. But beyond the company's own pitch, what you should do really is, check with third party sources. Okay. Check with third party sources. Check with government agencies. Go to the International Franchise Association website. Check with them. Okay. And most importantly, talk to the current franchisees and former franchisees. Not the same guy, same person. If you're buying a franchise from an existing franchisee, don't, they're always going to say nice things. Go to other franchisees, talk to them, listen to them. Okay, so do your market research. They'll tell you what the glossy brochures don't. Okay, so just pause for a moment and think about it. If you were evaluating a franchise, what's the first question you would want answered? What's the first question you want answered? Think of that and then go and ask them those questions. Okay. So you may want to ask, is the franchisor dedicated to the franchise system? Does the franchisor produce and market quality goods? Does the franchisor enjoy a favorable reputation? Can the franchisor offer established, well-designed marketing plan? Because they say they do all this, and they say they give complete training, but do they do it? Does the franchisor have good relationships with its franchisees? Do franchisees have a strong franchisee organization that has negotiating leverage with the franchisor? Does the franchisor have history of attracting earnings by its franchisees? So do a lot of, groundwork, research before doing this. Okay, and talk to as many agencies as you can. And also look at some business publications. Okay. Now, if you want to become a franchisor, okay, so that's suppose you want to, you're doing very well, you have you have a particular business and it's doing pretty well. Now you're thinking about becoming a franchisor. Okay, just flip the whole game. You want to become a franchisor. So you've built a strong business, you want to expand through franchising. Think of two men and a truck. I explained that in the previous chapters. So you'll need to test whether your model can be replicated first. You'll need money to grow. Okay. So first you want to see is this something that can be replicated? And do I have some amount of extra money that I can invest in these other franchise? Because if you are giving franchise, you also have to invest money in that. So you'll need money to grow. You'll need lawyers, consultants, to set up contracts. And you have to create an operations manual so that franchisees can follow your playbook. You'll need to comply with the FTC franchise rule, okay, which requires full disclosure to potential franchisees. So it's a lot of work, and it needs time, energy, and money to put all these things into place. And think of the legal issues. Okay, let's think of the legal issues. First is you have to have a franchise contract. Okay, it's a very dense legal document. It covers everything from royalty payments to what happens if you want to sell or transfer your location. So for both the franchisor and the franchisee, this is a very important document. So for a franchisee, they should pay attention to what should be the royalty, what would be the royalty, and what happens if I want to sell it. And what is the one red flag is overly strict cancellation policies. If they are very strict cancellation policy, that's a red flag for you. Another is vague rules around renewing the contract. So these are all, you have to be alert about these things. Once you see vague rules about renewing the contract, overly strict cancellation policy, or, you know, uh, what happens about transferring the location. So always, always, always get legal advice before you sign it. So the franchisor disclosed document is also crucial. It shows the franchisor's finances, past lawsuits, bankruptcy history, and more. So if you don't like what you see, just walk away. Okay, that's very important. You should know when to walk away. So now let's do this. Let's do a knowledge check. So, which of the following statement best describes the franchise rule? The amount of profit a franchisor can expect to realize from a franchise is directly proportional to the amount of money invested in it. The only reliable source of information about franchise comes from the franchisor and the franchise-related documents. This franchise regulation requires a franchisor to disclose certain information to prospective franchisees. This portion of a franchise agreement spells out the payment and royalty terms between the franchisor and franchisee. Pause the video for a second, read it carefully, and answer it. What do you think would be the answer? It is C. The federal regulation requires a franchisor to disclose certain information to prospective franchisees, right? So the Federal Trade Commission issued an amended franchise rule in May 2008, which requires all the franchisors to disclose certain information to the prospective franchises. So some business owners may decide that they would rather not disclose information that they consider confidential, such as prior bankruptcies, the business experience of the principals, or litigation in which the firm is involved. If that is the case, franchising may not be the appropriate method for them to grow. Okay, so because law requires them to disclose prior bankruptcies, litigation, prior experience of the principals, etc. Okay, now let's go to the next topic, which is independent contracting. Okay, so like I said, an entrepreneur has several options. One is franchising. The next one is independent contracting, especially in the gig and sharing economy. So which of the options is good for you? You need to look at all of this, okay? So what is independent contracting? So let's shift gears now. So not everyone wants to follow someone's playbook, right? Like I said, some people prefer independence. And independent contracting gives you that independence. Okay, that's what independent contracting is about. Okay, so um, an independent contractor is someone who agrees to do a job but decides how to do it. Okay, so they like a freelance designer, for example, IT consultant, accountants. Even if you have a construction contractor, for example, you ask somebody to redo your bathroom or redo your kitchen. So they will come and they will do it as per your specifications, as per your preferences, but they're independent. They're not attached to anybody. So it's their job, and um, they're not answerable to anybody except for the client. I mean, all of us, all entrepreneurs are answerable to the client. So except for the client, they're not answerable to anyone. So that is what an independent contractor means. So there are clear upsides. You choose your hours, A, you deduct your expenses for tax purposes, and sometimes earn more per hour, right? But there are also trade-offs, okay? What are the trade-offs? You don't have health insurance, no paid time off, there is irregular income, and you're responsible for your own taxes and tools. Okay, so this is something that you have to keep in mind. Okay, now so you have both advantages and disadvantages of independent contracting. Now let's look at how the gig and sharing economy has helped in mushrooming of independent contracting as a business. So independent contracting has exploded with the gig economy and the sharing economy. So what is this gig economy? The gig economy is about short-term jobs, okay? So for example, driving Uber in your, free time, delivering DoorDash, tutoring on Wisant, okay? So the sharing economy is about sharing assets, like renting out your spare bedroom on Airbnb or your car on Turo. Now, these platforms give millions of people a way to earn income quickly, right? But they also raise issues because the problem with the gig economy is, inconsistent pay. Some days you will make money, some days you will not. Safety concerns, depending on who you're giving your apartment to for Airbnb, or who is going to be your Uber passenger. These are all safety concerns. Privacy risk, sometimes misclassification. Companies are sometimes they call these Uber drivers. I mean, like contractors like that, freelancers like these, um, they call they're independent, they are freelancers. But sometimes what they do is these companies they call workers independent when they're treated like employees. So that is a little bit of confusion. So that's something that we need to be aware of, right? So those are not actually sharing economy. Okay. So sharing economy is like, think of when you're getting extra income, when you're able to have the flexibility, and um, you trust the um, you trust the system, and you're able to do it easily. Okay, so think of it like Uber and all that. Okay, so a worker is considered an employee and not an independent contractor unless the hiring meets all the three conditions. So first is the person is independent of the hiring organization in connection with the performance of the work, both under the contract for the performance of the work, and in fact, the person performs work that is outside the hiring entity's business. Person is routinely doing work in an independently establishing trade, occupation, or business that's the same as the work being requested and performed. So that these are the three conditions that need to be fulfilled for a person to be classified as an independent contractor and not an employee, right? So just think about this. During the pandemic, okay, the gig economy grew by 33%. You know why? Because people lost jobs and turned to gig work. Companies needed flexible workers, on the other hand, because they also could not afford full-time employees. And everything moved online, which opened up opportunities across borders. Okay, so once again, if you want to, if you want to, for a moment, pause and think whether you are an independent contractor or an employee. Think of three things. Are you independent in performing your work? Are you doing your work outside the company's usual business? Do you already running an independent business in the trade? If you don't meet all three, that means chances are you are an employee. Okay. So, like I said, you know, to maintain the status of an independent contractor, perform work for more than one company, proactively seek opportunities, and look for creative venturing. Okay, so when you start a freelancing, you may not even think that you are actually you're an entrepreneur, but actually you are. Okay, yeah. So what is the future of the gig and sharing economy? By some estimates, over half of the US workforce will participate in the gig economy in the coming years. So 50% of you probably will end up in the gig economy, right? So it may be an independent construction contractor, maybe a independent designer, So many workers don't even see themselves as entrepreneurs, but they are. So to succeed, what you need to do is independent contractors should diversify their clients. Okay, they should go proactively find work. They should think creatively about how to package their skills, so that people are attracted to them. Easier said than done. Okay, so do some self-assessment and think of this. What sort of franchising opportunities appeal to you? What can you do now to better inform yourself of such opportunities? Okay, and what experience have you had in a gig economy, like babysitting, lawn care, or designing, web designing, or um, um, Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that you can do. Does the gig economy experience appeal to you as future work? In what ways does the independent contractor lifestyle appeal to you? What downsides might it have for you? Okay, so um, so here's the big picture. Okay, here's the big picture. Franchising is about plugging into an existing system. Okay, it's about plugging into a stable existing system, but with limits. Okay, however, if you see, independent contracting and gig work is about freedom. Okay, and flexibility, but these come with risks. Okay, so because you're not plugging into an existing system, you're on your own. So the question is, which path fits you better? Do you want the structure and brand, recognition of a franchise, or the independence of going solo? Neither is better. Both are good. So what you choose depends on your personality and your goals and how you would want to spend your, remember, 86,400 seconds each day. So based on that, you should be making your choice. And with that, we are done with chapter 4.